Hello everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Southern Soul. I'm your host, Tony Morris. And some of you may be wondering, why is the show called Southern Soul if you're just joining us for the first time? Well, the southern part is because originally I'm from Alabama. And the soul part is because, guess what? I'm a psychic medium. That's right, a psychic medium. And on Southern Soul, what we do is we cover a lot of ground in the world of spirituality, covering a lot of different topics. And also, we'll talk about, aspects of my career as a psychic as well. So I'm really glad you're joining us today. It's always a little, when you're in the studio, you got great crew here to get you touched up and hopefully looking good. Oh, thanks. Oh, there you go. So let me share with you a little bit of background about me for those of you who may be just joining us for the first time. I haven't always been a psychic. You have to understand, I had a major life change 9.5 years ago where I had a major spiritual awakening, and that's when I discovered my psychic gifts. And I made a decision at that time to utilize it to help not only people, but also to help the planet. But prior to that, there was a different world for Tony. I majored in journalism, where I went off to conquer the world in the world of communications. So not only did I work for newspapers, but I also worked in major corporations where I covered corporate communications, taking information, packaging it up in a way so people would make intelligent decisions or take appropriate actions, or in some ways just be inspired. And during that period of time, with my journalism background and my corporate communications background, I learned the importance of communications. So it's not just what I say, it's how I say it. I think I've made that clear. The other thing that I definitely remember in my days in journalism and corporate communications was make sure you cover the cardinal questions: the who, the what, the where, the why, the how. Got to have those covered. But one of the most important aspects of a good journalism reporter or corporate communications, or anybody in general, is you got to remember communications is really a two-way street. It's not just a one-way dialogue. If someone's just talking, that's not communications in a total perspective. You got to be a good listener. Listening is a fine art in the world of communications. And that really makes communications, like I said, a two-way street. And on today's episode of Southern Soul, we have got a huge special treat. We have got one of the most profound, one of the most famous interviewers of all time, the legendary Rona Barrett. And I know many of you out there remember Rona from her great days when she was the entertainment reporter on the Good Morning America show, the Today Show. She was on Entertainment Tonight. She had a host of magazines. She covered Hollywood like nobody else did and has done today. She was truly a pioneer, and she's truly a legend. And she's going to be here today on Southern Soul to talk about her new book, Gray Matters. But before we bring Rona out on Southern Soul, one of the things that we always do on Southern Soul is we take a few questions from the viewers. So let's go to set and take those questions right now. I've got the questions, so let's get started. First question: have you ever been inside a house that's haunted? Whoa. Okay. Well, that kind of makes me think, because if you were to come to my house on some days, even though it's not haunted, it's pretty darn scary because it's probably a total mess. So, I don't want to be coming to my place. But to answer your question, have I ever been into a place that's haunted? Yes. I went on vacation a couple of years ago to the Heceta Head Lighthouse. Now, this is on the Central Oregon coast. It's one of the most beautiful coastlines in the entire country, and it's famous for having this incredible lighthouse. And on the premises of the lighthouse, you can actually spend the night in the bed and breakfast. It used to be the lightkeeper's home, and they've turned it into this wonderful bed and breakfast. But the story is that one of the former inhabitants of this lightkeeper's house still roams the attic. And that night, whenever I lay happily in my bed with the windows open, you could hear things rattling around up in the attic. And trust me, it wasn't like a little squirrel traipsing around. It was more like a bowling ball rolling around in the attic. And the next morning at breakfast, all the other bed and breakfast guests, we all kind of started kind of giggling a little bit when we started asking the question, did you hear all that stuff going on in the attic last night? So that's just one time that I've actually experienced being in a place that's haunted. Now, it doesn't mean that it was, a horrible experience. It's just, it's energy, it's spiritual energy. And I just acknowledged that, yes, this is your place too. You have a special connection with it. And I wasn't bothered. And it's actually a quite wonderful experience. And I'm sure other people have had similar experiences as well when they felt another spiritual presence in an actual physical facility, whether it's a home or a ancient hotel or another physical place. So thanks for that question. Number 2, you mentioned before that you receive visual symbols and images. What are some of the most unusual ones that you've received? Yeah, that's one of the aspects of my job is whenever I do meditation, I will see visual cues, images, icons that help me work with the client to get to the point of whatever we need to discuss. Now, as far as a level of unusualness, there's quite a few, but let me share maybe 1 or 2 stories. One that definitely comes to mind was I was doing a session with a lady over the phone. She lived in New Jersey. And I said, why am I seeing the movie poster to Jaws? The famous movie poster, dun 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 dun, with the shark swimming to the water. And she goes, oh, I hope it's not about our place in Boca, sharks. I said, no, if it were sharks that I was being focused on, I think they would have shown me the shark fin. But this was clearly the movie poster to Jaws. And I said, I feel like I'm supposed to tell you, be on the lookout for Jaws. Pay attention to Jaws. Pretty unusual. 6 months later, I get an email from her that said, remember when you told me to be on the lookout for Jaws? Now, most of the things I don't remember what I tell my clients, but that I remember just because the image was so unusual, right? Jaws. I said, yeah, I remember that. I replied, yes, I remember that. And then she came back and said, well, I was complaining that I was having trouble chewing. So I went to see my doctor, and my doctor tells me I have an eroding jawline and that I have to have jaw implants. So if you hadn't told me to be on the lookout for Jaws, the news might have freaked me out a little bit. She goes, but the way in which you communicated that information to me, it sort of helped buffer the news. It didn't make me freak out. It made me want to take action to get it corrected, right? So anyway, that's probably one of the most unusual ones. So thanks for that question. And finally, number 3, how do our ancestors play a part in the world of spirituality? Oh, wow. Just because a loved one passes on and makes their transition from the physical world does not necessarily mean they are completely out of our lives. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. For example, my grandparents, who I love dearly, come to visit me in spirit quite a lot. My grandmother was a great Southern cook, and she has a tendency to kind of communicate still to this day with me through the power of food or the suggestion of food. One day, for example, I was really thinking very strongly about my grandmother, and I was in the grocery store, of all places, and I was in line, and the lady in front of me had like 8 heads of cabbage. Who buys 8 heads of cabbage at a given time? And the man, the checkout counter, said, oh, aren't you rushing the season? I think it was St. Patrick's Day was coming up. He goes, it's not for another couple of weeks. Aren't you rushing the season? I guess cabbage and whatever they do with cabbage during St. Patrick's Day. But the lady said, no, it's not for St. Patrick's Day. She goes, I'm getting ready to make a lot of cabbage rolls. Now you have to understand, my favorite dish that my grandmother ever made for me was cabbage rolls. And I'm thinking, thank you, Mama. here's my grandmother communicating to me, of all places, in the checkout lane of a grocery store. But that's kind of a lighthearted example. So don't think that your ancestors, whether they're a loved one or someone even from a previous life, can come to you in a very spiritual way. And they're also to be honored. I mean, the lessons that we learn from our ancestors, the lessons that I've learned from my grandparents, for example, are just invaluable. They taught me so many lessons that even though they're not here with me in physical form, that I still value and treasure to this day. And that's a great segue for our special guest. Rona Barrett, the legendary entertainment reporter, is here today. She's entered a whole new chapter of her life. She is an advocate for seniors in need, and she has a brand new book that she's just published called Gray Matters. And she's going to be here today on Southern Soul to talk about not only spirituality and aging, but share some really wonderful stories about her new book, Gray Matters. So stay tuned for this very special interview. It's not every day I get to have a special guest like the lady who's joining me today. But she's no ordinary person. She conquered Hollywood by being the legendary entertainment reporter on Good Morning America, The Today Show, a host of magazines and publications. She covered Hollywood like nobody else. And then she made an incredible life transition and became a senior advocate. That's right, an advocate for seniors in need. And most recently, this special lady just published a brand new book, Rona Barrett's Gray Matters. Please welcome the legendary Rona Barrett to Southern Soul. Thank you for being here, Rona.
That was a very nice opening. Thank you so much, Tony. That was really good. You amaze me.
Yeah.
You amaze me for someone who hasn't been before the cameras in, since,
you're being sweet.
whatever.
Wow.
That you can do it so elegantly and eloquently.
Oh, I like that. Now, Rona is joining us today to talk about a very special topic, spirituality and aging. And, again, her brand new book, Gray Matters. And let's get started with a couple of questions. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't believe I'm interviewing Rona Barrett, the legendary person who did all these great interviews. Okay, enough gushing, right? First question, how did your role as an advocate for seniors in need come to be? Did you have some kind of special inspiration?
I think I owe almost everything to my father. My father didn't realize it, I think, in the beginning, but watching him and listening to what he had to say, I think was the basic foundation of why I have come to this place today. My father would say to me, Rona, one day, if you ever have more than a nickel, and you don't need that nickel, remember there's somebody else out there who does need it, and so you give that nickel to them. And I was only like maybe 7 years old, 6 years old, 8, nothing older than that. And to understand what that really meant, I can't tell you that at that time I totally understood it. But it remained with me ever since he said it. And it seemed like every time I would go to school and there was somebody sitting next to me and their mother forgot to give them an extra cookie or a cookie, and I had 3 cookies, I always gave them a cookie. I didn't need 3 cookies. I was fat enough as it was. And when I was very chubby when I was, I had a lot of problems when I was a child. I was born with a disability that for years nobody knew exactly what it was that was wrong with me.
Right.
And my mother, while she was supportive, it was my father who always said to me and put his arms around me and said, don't worry, baby girl, it will all be okay.
I love that.
And so my mother never stopped. She said, as long as there is some breath in my body, I will take you to every doctor in this country until I find out what's wrong with you. And at age 11, 12, I had been in a hospital as a guinea pig for a whole year, off and on, but I was there as a guinea pig. And they never could find out exactly what it was, and I got fed up going to this research hospital in Manhattan. And and I said to my mother, I'm never going again, do you hear me? I am never going again. And she looked at me and she said to me, as long as there is breath in my body, I will take you wherever I want to take you until I can figure this out.
The power of a mother's love. And your
Strange
father.
way, yes.
Yeah.
In a strange way, yes, it was. But it was my father, because going back to what I just told you a moment ago, every Sunday he would take his checkbook out and do his business and write checks and pay his bills. And then I would see him take another checkbook out and he would write something like, Sister Kenny.
Sister Kenny.
$5, $10. And I said, who's Sister Kenny? Why are you doing this? And he said, I keep telling you, if you know, you got to give back. You've got to give back. And this is a way of paying back. And if these people need it and these people really need it, I want them to find a cure. And if it's a cure for you, all the better. Wow. And he would then write other checks to other people. And sometimes I would say, Daddy, $25, that's a lot of money. And he said, yes, it is. But my mother said these people were in a concentration camp in, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was a concentration camp in Europe, and they had escaped to Israel. And they had no money. And my grandmother told my father, we don't really know them, but we think they're second or third cousins. But I have an address, so I want you to send them some money. We're sending them a little money. And so my father wrote this check, and I never forgot it. And I never forgot the story of his doing that. And I think that's basically, I did it all through my life in Hollywood.
Right.
I mean, if people, I didn't have any money. I started with zero on the plane going to Los Angeles for the first time after my father saying, I'll never let you go. You cannot go. I don't want you to go. My mother screaming, you can't go. We can't let you out of this house. And I said, but I've got a taxi waiting downstairs.
And you were determined.
Determined
Wow.
to go. And my father said, send the taxi away. I will take you. So he took me to the airport, and we were very silent in the car.
I can imagine.
And when
And that was before Uber, right?
Uber? What is an Uber?
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, when I was going on the plane, he stuck something into my hand, and I wasn't quite sure because I had gloves on and everything. And when I got on the plane, I realized he had given me 3 $100 bills. And that was the only money that I had, and he wanted me to make sure that I buy a good car, because he knew I was going to need a car once I got to California, to Hollywood. Can't get around any other way. And so I guess my father has just always played this important role in my life and was the inspiration, because he came to live with me after my mother had passed away. And it is there and then that I really began to understand that life changes for people, and that what they once were, they are not always the same person as they age. And I saw that this country was about to have this enormous gray tsunami hit it, and nobody was talking about it. No one was realizing. I was reading articles in which they stated that we needed some 400 daytime senior centers in this country, and at the
400.
time, this is now going back 25,
Oh, yeah.
30 years ago, and we didn't have anywhere near that number. And I said, what are we going to do? And here I was, I'd been on television, and I was having a very successful career, and my fans were all the baby boomers.
That's
I
right,
mean, we
yeah.
were all in the same, pretty much age
Exactly.
category. So,
And you have a lot of fans out there.
well, sometimes
Yeah.
we do. You were with me when we went to Pittsburgh
Yeah.
just very recently.
That's right.
And even in the airport, they were yelling out my name.
True,
Hard to
folks.
believe, since
True.
I haven't been on television for 20-some odd years.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you decided to be on Southern Soul. And the story about your father and the nickel, that actually resonates with me. I think that's a wonderful story. And I know you've been very busy raising awareness for seniors in need, but you've also been busy raising funds for your foundation and its major initiative, the Golden Inn and Village, which is an affordable housing project for low-income seniors in need that also has...
It's the first one.
That's right.
In the Santa Ynez Valley, and not too many all over nearby counties, etc. And it was very difficult because a lot of people for many years, when I tried to envision how would we take care of the seniors and what would happen if there was suddenly a recession, and where would they go, and what if they lost their money, what was going to happen
Right.
to all of them. And
So you started visualizing what a solution could be. You're a visionary type person.
basically,
Tell me more about how you visualize this whole concept of the Golden Inn and Village. I mean, because it had to start somewhere.
yeah, goes back to Daddy. Goes back to Daddy when he was living with me. I came back from my office one afternoon for lunch, and my father was sitting in the kitchen. And I said, hi, Dad. No,
No way.
Dad. Hi, how you doing? Who are you? Get out of my house. I don't know any Rona. Just get out of my house.
Oh,
And that was the night that I decided if I couldn't take care of my father, what was going to happen to all the other people who couldn't take care of their parents or their grandparents or anyone else like that? And so I went to bed with a big yellow pad, and on the yellow pad I wrote, Golden Inn and Cottages.
so that was the start.
That was the beginning. And on that yellow pad, I wrote down all the things that I thought my father would want if he had to go to a place like this. And basically, that's what we have done with the Golden Inn and Village.
Yeah, it has a whole wealth of services and
Wealth of services. I can't tell you. And every day I thank my stars that I met a woman named Anna Weidling, and she was the perfect person to take over this role. And we haven't even been open a full year yet, and we have brought so many different services that doesn't cost the low-income senior a dime.
that's so wonderful. That is absolutely so wonderful. And speaking of senior citizens, aging, aging in some societies, it sometimes doesn't get respect that it deserves. Yet in many cultures, the elders are honored and they're held in very high esteem. To me, it feels, when certain cultures do that, to me it feels very spiritual in nature, like we're honoring the lessons learned or what impact they have. Have you ever made any kind of similar connections?
I think I probably have over the years. What I did notice and what I have noticed in taking care of and looking at the senior population was as you get older, you lose your filters, and that you're capable of saying almost everything and anything, which often shocks people because these were not the same manner or the same way that you may have articulated a story before, or anything that they wanted to say to you. They're quick to just say what's on their mind, get it off their chest, and something like that. But you asked me something else within that question.
Have you made any spiritual connections?
I made a very interesting spiritual connection very recently for my birthday.
Oh.
I was introduced to a great medium named Robert Brown. And my girlfriend, I said, well, I don't really want to go to see anyone right now. And so she said, yeah, it's your birthday. It's my birthday present to you.
Okay.
And so when I met Mr. Brown, he sat there for a few minutes, and then he looked at me and he said, oh my God, there's too many people here. They're all around me, and they're just, it's incredible. You have so many people who want to say something to you. And he says, oh, and there's a man, he's tipping his hat. And he said, did you know Bill Holden? And I said, I didn't know him well enough to say I knew him.
William Holden, famous actor.
And he said, I think he's trying to say something for all the people who are up here now who want to bow their hats to you, because so many of them trusted you, liked you.
Folks, she interviewed everybody and anybody in Hollywood, from John Wayne to Mae West. I mean, you name it, she did it. And speaking of stories, Rona, you've just published a brand new book, Gray Matters. And it's filled with stories about aging, anecdotes about aging, and I see there, it's got some of your Hollywood pictures in here too. It's a wonderful read. What prompted you to go back to the bookshelves after all these years to write Gray Matters?
Well, Gray Matters is really a compilation of all the stories that I was asked to write by our local newspaper, the Santa Ynez Valley News Press. One day I was sitting next to the editor, and she said, my God, you know so much about, it seems the aging process. And she says, why don't you write a column for us, what it's like to age? And I said, well, I don't have the time to do it. And she said, well, find the time. And one day at one of our board meetings, I said, I was asked to write a column for our local newspaper, and what does the board think about my doing such a thing? And
the board for your foundation? For
my foundation, yes. Thank you for adding all those extra words I forget. So they said, are you kidding? Do it. So sat down one day, and the first thing I think I wrote was about what it was like to lose my husband when he died. And this story had a very resounding effect within so many people within our community.
I can imagine.
And the paper also puts out the Santa Maria Times and the Lompoc Record and several other newspapers. And I began writing about what it was like every day to wake up and something else was wrong with you. And I talked about my friends that I would call and so forth and so on, and the first thing they would say out of my mouth, I'd say, how you doing today? Oh, Rona, you have no idea, my back is just killing me. I don't know what happened to me. I mean, I went to bed last night and I was perfectly fine. I don't get it. And then twice a month I would find these stories about things that were happening not only to myself, but to other friends.
Right.
And that's what this book is really all about. It's the experience of getting older, of going into this what I call the phasing stage of graying. And we had a bunch of titles, and the minute I saw Gray Matters, I said, that's it, because gray does matter. The wisdom that we have all gained, or some of us who haven't gained, but most of us who have gained wisdom, is something everybody should share and share with everyone else. It's not something that you just keep to yourself.
And the added bonus about Gray Matters is that Rona wrote this as a fundraiser for her nonprofit, the Rona Barrett Foundation, which supports seniors in need, specifically providing affordable housing and wellness services for seniors in need. So every time one of these books is purchased by the viewers, it goes directly to your foundation. And they can buy it by going to your website, the foundation's website, ronabarrettfoundation.org.
That's a nice thing to say, but that is true.
It's
we
a
did this
book.
as a way to raise money for our seniors, for hopefully food programs we intend to bring to the Golden Inn and Village, and anything else that transpires. We try to get as many things as we can volunteered to us or given to us, and but sometimes you really have to pay, and raising funds for trying to make a better life for seniors is to me one of the greatest things that could ever happen. And I really want to say that I was so surprised just a weekend or so ago when we were awarded by the national NAHRO, called NARRO, the National Association for Development and Redevelopment for Affordable Housing, etc., as the best new affordable housing for seniors of 2016, and also for the services, a second merit award.
To be recognized nationally, that's clearly paving the way to be a prototype, I would think, for similar projects that could happen across the country.
Yes, I think we all feel that way. So our California, our state senator, Hannah Beth Jackson, has presented SB 62 to the Congress, and we're hoping one day that it will get passed. And it's the Affordable Housing Act of 2017, and we're very hopeful that Governor Jerry Brown will eventually see this as a real model, and that can be replicated across not only the state but the country, as to how you take care of seniors as they age, and giving them a new future. That's one of the other things that we're trying to do.
It's not just a roof over people's heads.
It's not a roof over people's heads, and that's the other thing we have to learn from a political standpoint also. Just because you build affordable housing doesn't mean that that's the end of it, that because you've put a roof on someone's head, that everything is fine. It's not. And this was one of the greatest lessons that we all learned as the residents of the Golden Inn and Village came into being and moved into the residence. They bring with them, like I bring with myself and you bring with yourself, other issues and other problems that really need to be taken care of. So if you don't join the two and put them under the same umbrella,
makes sense,
you will never really achieve what you want to achieve in keeping seniors healthy, better, loving life, and not thinking that this is the end stage of life. This is just an adventure you're going through right now.
And this vision, folks, started on that yellow notepad.
On the yellow notepad.
Okay, I want to ask you a question about, because I feel like you've always been a visionary, whether it was in your career in Hollywood, where you, like I said, you conquered that single-handedly with the entertainment reporting.
I was one of the first, you know.
You were a pioneer. I mean, you set that town ablaze with entertainment reporting, whether it was on television or books, publications, etc. Or even this latest chapter where you've become a true advocate for seniors. What special advice can you share with others who may be watching today who truly want to pursue their own destiny or their bliss?
Well, the first thing is you never give up.
That's right.
You never give up. And I think the other, you asked me a question before, a metaphysical question.
Uh-huh.
And
imagine that.
I didn't answer it quite right. Well, there's another part of it. I was always interested in metaphysics
Mm-hmm.
and in spiritual world and spirituality, and I visited with a couple of wonderful people, and everywhere I went, they would say to me, you know, this is not the only career you're going to have. And I said, well, this is all I ever want. You know, I worked so hard to get it. No, in your later life, you're going to be doing something else. It has a connection, but not the connection that you have been in for all these years. You're going to do something different, something else. And then I would say, well, who would ever want a 70-year-old woman at the time to be on television? Don't be ridiculous. This is never going to happen. Because I was always thinking of just something on TV, because that's where my whole life was. And then when my father came to live with me, that was the beginning and the changing of everything. And the thing that I loved the most is when I went to see Robert Brown, in the midst of everything, he said, wait, hands are moving. I see this little guy coming up here. It's your father. I said, and he said, and he develops this look about my father, like he takes on the whole look of him. And he said, she finally got it. I knew one day she'd finally get it. I am so proud of her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And now I understand what they were saying to me so many years ago, that this would not be, my Hollywood career would not be the only career that I would have, or that career in journalism. They always said I would be a communicator. But
wow. And so I guess your advice would be, hey, don't be afraid of evolving, or your word was phasing into a new chapter in your life.
That's all that this is. It's an adventure. It's nothing more than another adventure, so don't be frightened of it.
Yeah, fear sucks, folk.
It does. It's terrible.
Okay, I've got a question, and I know, and I love this one because this is a question that you frequently asked a lot of your celebrity guests on your TV shows. When you look in the mirror, who and what do you see? You quite frequently ask that to a number of your celebrities. How would Rona Barrett answer that question today?
I see a person who is so much happier with who she is and who she has become. I really like me.
Oh, that's perfect. And okay, I have to back up. I actually have one more question.
Oh, I thought you would ask me a question about millennials.
Oh no, I'm going to ask you a question. Can we get a selfie?
What?
A selfie?
You don't look like Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh, come on. Let's see. All right, here we go. Squeeze in. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank
you so much. This has been a treat, folks, having Rona Barrett on my show, Southern Soul, talking about aging and spirituality, plus her brand new book, Gray Matters. Go to the website, ronabarrettfoundation.org. Purchase this book, buy it for Christmas gifts, holiday gifts, and remember, all sales from the copies of Gray Matters go directly to the foundation and helping seniors in need.
Yes.
One
And
more?
so to all of them,
That's hard for you, me to say.
first I want to apologize that my throat has been the way it is. And second of all, I want to say to all the millennials who might be watching out there, I was asked this question not long ago, what advice would you give them? And I thought, and here's my advice to you, there is no escape. You will be here. You will have maybe gray hair like I have, and there just is no escape.
Wow.
Have a good life, and remember, philanthropy is a wonderful thing.
Aw, thank you so much, Rona, for being our special guest on this episode. I should be kissing her hand. Wow. Thank you for being our special guest on this episode of Southern Soul. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with the final segment of Southern Soul, the Little Red Wagon segment. Wow. I cannot believe that Rona Barrett was just in that chair on this episode of Southern Soul. Thanks so much, Rona, for bringing your passion for spirituality and aging, particularly helping those seniors in need by providing them with affordable housing and wellness services through your foundation, the Rona Barrett Foundation. Now this brings me to my favorite part of the show. It's called the Little Red Wagon segment. Now you're probably wondering, where is he going with the Little Red Wagon? Well, the Little Red Wagon, think about it. When you're a kid, it was probably your first toy when you were a child. And we all probably had a Little Red Wagon, right? Probably even Rona. And you put your dreams, you put your aspirations, you put what you wanted to accomplish in your life in your Little Red Wagon, and you pull it through. Now sometimes the wheels may come off, or the Little Red Wagon may even get a little rusty, but it's always there. Your dreams, your aspirations are always there. The Little Red Wagon is your vehicle for accomplishing all those. So in today's segment of Little Red Wagon, the Little Red Wagon segment rather of Southern Soul, what I'm going to ask you to do, think of it as a little bit of homework. Based on what we talked about today with Rona, with seniors and aging, think about 3 senior citizens. 3 senior citizens who have been in your life, or maybe 3 senior citizens that you admire. Now these people don't even have to be living. They could be someone who've made their transition. But identify 3 senior citizens who you kind of have a connection with. Write their names down and put them in your Little Red Wagon. Now the second thing that I'd like for you to do is identify 3 things about those 3 people that really inspire you. Why do you have a connection with those 3 senior citizens? What's their inspiration in your life? Now here's the final step of this process. After you've identified the 3 people, the 3 points of inspiration, now take it one step further. How can you incorporate that inspiration into your life? How can you take what they've taught you, or what you've learned from them rather, how they've inspired you, how can you incorporate that into your daily life to make it better, to make it a more positive experience for yourself, and to help other people? So there's your homework for this segment of Little Red Wagon. Thank you so much for joining us on the latest episode of Southern Soul. I'm so glad you joined in. And thanks to my incredible crew, and a huge, huge thanks to my special guest star, Rona Barrett. I still can't believe I just interviewed Rona Barrett. Rona, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And until next time, keep rolling.
Until next time, you keep thinking the good thoughts. Thank you.
you.